We have called into question the idea that President Joe Biden is a bumbling fool. It may be true that he's deteriorating rapidly relative to his faculties, but his long-range goals have long been written down for us to see. Some years ago, he wrote an article in the Wall Street Journal titled, "How I Learned to Love the New World Order." In 1992, he gave a series of speeches before the United States Senate and then compiled them into a booklet titled On the Threshold of the New World Order, the Wilsonian Vision and American Foreign Policy in the 1990s and Beyond. For those of you who have read my book, To the Victor Go the Myths and Monuments, you will understand what I mean when I say that this document by Biden is a modern adaptation of the strategy of the Young America movement of the conspiratorial Carbonari in the 1800s America. This strategy basically is a one-world government to be conquered and run by the United States, to be the base from which the areas of Central and South America would be subjugated, then Europe and beyond. The Biden proposal is much of the same strategy to convince Americans and contains the same arguments that Young America used to convince Americans that a one-world government would be great if it was run by the United States. This is phony. It is a ruse, then, and remains a ruse today, to get Americans to fall for allowing us to become part of a new world order, while giving up our independence and sovereignty. If Americans can be led to believe that we will be the ones running the new world order, then many will acquiesce to the overall scheme. Within these pages of Biden's booklet are the steps he wants us to take to become part of the New World Order. He goes on and on about American leadership, but at the same time recommends steps that will take away our independence and the ability of Americans to decide their own future in his four-part agenda, which ties American interests into multilateralism rather than independent action. He uses such language as, quote, cementing the democratic foundation of a new world order, unquote. But it means we will be part of the new world order, not an independent country. Another phrase in this regard is, quote, bringing the world's major nations into a concert of cooperating democracies, unquote. What this means, again, is a concert, not independence, but locked into a system whereby others make the decisions for Americans. These steps are couched in soft language, but mean the United States giving up its independence to achieve them, such as the curtailment of our arms and the adoption of environmental regulations on a worldwide scale. He goes on to state that we need to work in the economic sector, led by the United Nations entities such as the International Monetary Fund and World Bank. In other words, these entities would control our economy. He also says that the United States is not contributing enough to international aid around the world. He says that we need to do more to encourage the rise of Democrats into leadership in China with the means which failed against communism in Europe, to spread awareness of democratic values and accurate news of contemporary events among a vast Chinese public. A radio-free China, while talking against trade sanctions against China. In other words, we will put on a radio program and do nothing. He says that we can win with a strategy of containment. Containment is not a strategy. It is a lack of strategy, doing nothing. He also recommends more treaties through the United Nations and what has become known as Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, and the Great Reset. He states, quote, a great realization has dawned worldwide that man-made changes are profoundly perilous for man himself, unquote. This, after he lauds the work of the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, out of which came Agenda 21 and its offspring. Today, he is referring too much of this as his Build Back Better program, which is the exact same program. He wanted to place our armed forces under the umbrella of NATO. For anyone reading the NATO treaty, it is immediately obvious that it places control of the armed forces of its members by the United Nations. Read the NATO treaty online and see for yourself. At the same time, he wants to expand the UN Security Council to include more countries. Quote, enhancing the Security Council's stature through a broadened membership, unquote, without pointing out that the broad membership of the UN usually votes against American interests. If you read the UN Charter, you will see that the Security Council can curtail the ability of the United States to even defend itself without the permission of the UN. Finally, under the subtitle, Launching an Economic Environmental Revolution, he further outlines what we understand today as the environmental movement on an international scale. Another factor is his promotion of free trade. We in the John Birch Society have been saying for decades that the free trade movement is the back door to control of our economy and the loss of our sovereignty by the use of free trade treaties that have little to do with free trade and a lot to do with tying up the United States into first regionalism and then a one-world government. The verbiage Biden uses in his text is well written. It disarms the reader into thinking that he has the best interests of the American people in mind until you isolate the steps he recommends. But it is the program of the Council on Foreign Relations. One world under controls that prevent the individual or any country from having the freedom to decide for themselves their future. The bungling appearance of the Biden administration is simply projecting an image of incompetence, when the real situation is they know what they're doing and it amounts to treason. Copies of this document are getting harder to find. I advise you to search for this title that we will provide in the description and see if you can find a copy for yourself. This is Biden's blueprint, and it is packed with a program of the conspiracy for world domination. You know, it's funny. No one who's ever run against Biden has ever exposed this agenda. Interesting, isn't it? Again, read our book, In the Shadows of the Deep State, and get an overview of this program. We do not push this book to sell books, but to help you understand what's going on so you can explain it to others.